Ashita Joe for the PS2, based on the legendary yet rather obscure manga of the same name, is a fighting game that pretends to be a boxing game when it's really just 99% button mashing and about 1% actual skill. I've decided to be an idiot and make a tier list for this game, as there's actually some interesting stuff to it. Kind of, but not really. Let me run through some of the things you need to know before I get into the list proper. There's a roster of 25 characters, with 20 of them using the boxer style, and 5 of them using the brawler style. 24 of 25 can also use special moves that result in an instant knockdown with a super knockdown effect, which makes it harder to stand up afterwards. There's 2 types of supers, strike supers and counter supers. Remember the latter. Supers will destroy the AI. You can almost guarantee a win by using a super on an enemy with less than half health. Strike supers use the same animation as a straight punch, but can be dodged, blocked, or even cancelled if you can hit the user fast enough. Counter supers are frame 1 and can even be used to override strike supers. So what makes a character good? 2 things. 1. Do they have a counter super? 2. Are they a fast fighter? Some characters have varying attack speed, and since the meta of this game is to rush down your opponent, trap them in the corner, and obliterate them as fast as possible, the best characters are the fast ones. With that out of the way, I'm your host, Mandasanj, and welcome to the Ashita Joe PS2 tier list. Spoilers. The F, E and D tiers will consist of the 5 brawler characters. They suck. They're really bad. Brawlers can't dash, they can't dodge, and they can't even block. Not a great thing in the fighting game. They do have one defensive maneuver, that being a duck, but it's bad. The duck is beaten completely by the boxer's body blow attack, performed by pressing neutral circle or neutral X. Since that move hits low, and the duck forces you to go low, and you can't block, or dash, or really move much since the brawlers have terrible movement speed, you're just gonna get hit. All 5 brawlers are totally non-viable. So who's the worst? Who is the lone man at the bottom of the list in F tier? Well, it's Joe. It's Joe 1. There's actually 5 Joes in this game, and they're all over the tier list, but Joe 1 is the worst. Not just the worst of the Joes, but the worst of the game. He's a brawler, which is bad, with no super. Since supers drop the AI like a sack of potatoes, it's annoying that Joe 1 doesn't have a super. In fact, he's the only character not to have a super. This means even on the easiest difficulty, you have to really struggle through the arcade mode. Next, in the E tier, I have Goon and Nishi 1, who are simply just slow brawlers. Brawlers are already slow, so making them slower is just horrendous. But they do have a super, so that will speed things up a little bit. As long as you have good timing, as their specials do come out a lot slower than they should. For comparison, when I did my first victory mode / arcade mode run as Joe 1 on the easiest difficulty setting, Joe 1 took me about 2.5 hours. Goon and Nishi 1 took me about an hour. That is how much time you save by just having a super. D tier is for the other 2 brawlers, Joe 2 and Goromaki Gondo. These 2 are just regular brawlers. They aren't slow. In fact, I think Gondo is actually the fastest brawler, and they both have specials. They're the best of the brawlers, sure, but they still aren't viable. C tier is for the boxers who I consider to be a bit Starting off is Harama, who I consider the worst boxer in the game. He's slow, for a start, and he's one of 3 characters who can only use his super when he's got his opponent against / near the ropes. This greatly limits him. He's far too slow to build heat quickly, and sure, the meta of the game is to pin the opponent near the ropes / corner, but you need some sort of speed for that, and Haramao just struggles with it. Also, strangely, Haramao can block, but his only defensive dodge is the duck, like the brawler. At least he has a guard, so he isn't totally susceptible to low blows, but it's still a weird quirk of his that no other boxer has. Next are Danpei and Pinan. These are two just slow boxers. They have a regular strike super, but speedy boxers are very, very strong in this game, so slower boxers like Danpei, like Pinan, just fall behind. After these two is Wolf. Wolf to me is also a slow boxer with a strike super like Danpei and Pinan, however Wolf has something cool. The most common counter super in this game is the cross counter. That's used by Joe 3, Joe 4, Joe 5, Rikishi 2, Rikishi 3, and Carlos. These 6 characters, if they have enough super meter when they are caught in an opponent's cross counter, will enter a random button guessing minigame to possibly counter the counter. It's a stupid mechanic that rarely ever gets used, but Wolf is the only non-counter using character who's able to perform a double cross. I think this weird gimmick of his puts him a little bit higher than Danpei and Pinan. Finally, in C tier is Kim, another character who can only use his super when near the ropes. He's not slow though, but his limited super move usage puts him lower than the other boxers for me. B tier just consists of the characters who just are. Like they're just standard. In no particular order, we have Jose Mendoza, Usman Somkit, Kumataro Inaba, Nishi 2, and Takeo Murase. They seem to all be average speed boxers with strike supers, just standard characters. However, at the top of B tier, I've placed Rikishi 1. This might seem strange as Rikishi 1, unlike Rikishi 2 and 3, doesn't have a counter super. And he's also like Haramao and Kim, he can't use his super unless his opponent is near the ropes. So why is he so good? Why is he at the top of B? Well, he's our first fast boxer. He's easily able to get his opponent against the ropes and kill them quickly. This is far more useful than using his super. Supers are risky, but fast punches are forever. I've put 5 characters in A tier. First up is Inagaki. Inagaki just escapes B tier for me. He's a fast boxer with a strike super that doesn't need to be used near the ropes. So why is he better than the Rikishi 1? Well, even though I said supers aren't as useful as super fast punches, it's better to be able to use your super wherever you want, as opposed to only being able to use it in certain places. But now we get into the counter users. And yes, every character from now on has access to the broken Frame 1 counter super. First up, Rikishi 3, who is by far the slowest of the counter users. To be honest, I'm tempted to put him below Inagaki, but having a Frame 1 counter super that can be used as a free escape from a possible attack, or even a free escape from a strike super, is too powerful of a tool. Then we have Carlos and Rikishi 2. I've put these two together because they feel very similar, only Carlos is slightly faster. They each have a strike super and a counter super. In fact, Carlos has a third super, a strike super near the ropes. I don't know what makes the game use whichever move, as the super button is just R1 and there's no separate button for separate supers. That's why I've put above them both Joe 3. Joe 3 only has the cross counter. He's not as fast as Carlos, but the fact that you'll always perform the cross counter instead of possibly quote unquote accidentally using Carlos or Rikishi 2's strike supers instead makes Joe 3 far more consistent of a character. Finally, the S tier. Starting off the tier is a tied spot between Joe 4 and Joe 5. They have the cross counter, of course, but they also have a completely unbeatable variation of the cross counter called the rope work cross counter, performed by using your super near the ropes. Unlike the regular cross counter, which can be double crossed, the rope work variation cannot be double crossed, meaning it is a guaranteed unbeatable Frame 1 counter super with a super knockdown, instant knockdown destruction move, right? It's incredible. But what is better than that? Tiger Ozaki, that's what. Tiger is a fairly fast boxer with a counter super that absolutely cannot be beaten. There's no double crossing here. It's just a counter super that Tiger has. It's not a cross counter. This is crazy, right? A faster boxer means easier and quicker knockdowns, and the counter super gives you a get out of jail free card against everything. Aside from another counter super, but that's just the risk you gotta take. But you're actually forgetting one more character. We've only had 24. There's 25. Who could the best character be? Aoyama. On God, Aoyama is the best character in the game. He's a really fast boxer, and like Tiger, has an unbeatable counter super. He outclasses everybody in the game, and you never expect it. It's Aoyama, of all characters. Speedy knockdowns and a get out of jail free card. Aoyama is Tiger, but better in every way. To me, he is the best character in the game. I'd like to mention this tier list also applies for speedruns too. Faster knockdowns and faster characters are fast. Fast is good for speed, and speed is good for speedruns. I truly fail to see who would be better than Aoyama. But with that said, I've been your host, Manda Sanj, and I hope you enjoyed the Ashita PS2 tier list. Toodles!